Welcome back. Tragedy and terrorism. It's sparking in several of our ally nations. Did you know that? Might not. To be honest, I had to do research because it's hard to find headlines. Why? Because the only thing that the Biden administration and the mainstream media globally, and I don't just mean American media, seems to be focused on, of course, is the war in Ukraine. But over the past week or two, some of our strongest allies in the Middle East, Israel, has faced 3 separate terror attacks, bringing the death toll to about a dozen. Again, you probably haven't heard of any of these. So let's review them before we bring on our next guest. Late last night, at least 5 Israelis killed in a shooting near Tel Aviv. Israeli police identified the gunman as a 27-year-old Palestinian man. He was later shot and killed by cops as he tried to flee the scene. Authorities say in 2015, the man was released from his Israeli jail after serving 6 months for possessing illegal arms and belonging to a terror group. Israel's prime minister now saying terrorism against Israelis is once again on the rise.
After a period of quiet, there is a violent eruption by those who want to destroy us, those who want to hurt us at any price, whose hatred of Jews, of the state of Israel, drives them crazy. They are prepared to die, so that we will not live in peace. We are currently dealing with a new wave of terrorism. What we witnessed less than a year ago in Operation Guardians of the Walls, the terrorism and the violence from within Israel and inside Israel, was the first sign.
So that was last night. There was another attack then over the weekend. Let's tell you about this one. On Sunday, ISIS. Haven't heard much from them, right? Since Trump pretty much broke up the whole caliphate and all of their hierarchy. But now they're making a comeback. ISIS killing 2 and injuring 6 other Israelis. The gunman opened fire in a small town, it's a city, Hadera, about 31 miles north of Tel Aviv, we're told. ISIS claiming responsibility for this attack. We did it, they said. The attack happened while 2 diplomats from the United Arab Emirates and Morocco, Egypt, Israel, and a bunch of all these ambassadors were meeting to discuss what? Security at a nearby summit. They were tracking it. They knew it was happening. Someone attacked. So one we have last night, one we have over the weekend. Let's go back to last Tuesday too, because I'm sure once again, you didn't hear about this one. 4 killed, 2 wounded in an attack in southern Israel. Authorities say that a bus driver shot the attacker dead. The suspect stabbed a woman, continued to attack more people until the driver, as I said, shot him dead. But guy got on the bus and just started killing people. Authorities say this guy, that's the killer right there, Mohammed Abu Al-Kian. And guess what? He was a known supporter or possible member of ISIS. So 2 out of the 3 for sure connected to ISIS. Let's see, which presidency did ISIS grow so strong? Oh yeah, it was the Obama-Biden administration. Which administration took it down to nothing? The Trump administration. Now it's surging back under Biden. Any questions? I have one. What the heck is going on? Is ISIS trying to make a comeback? And is it thanks to Biden? I mean, he's re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. It's steps away from being approved, right? And this administration seems to only be focused on probably covering up Biden's crime family connections to Ukraine and Russia. So that's all we do is pay attention to the war in Ukraine, right? And since we have a weak commander-in-chief, that's just emboldening our enemies to regroup and attack once again. But that's just my opinion. Let's ask our next guest. He's got a lot more expertise than I do. Harley Lippman, foreign policy expert, an executive committee member on the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, and, oh, by the way, yes, a geopolitical analyst. So he has a lot more knowledge than I do. Harley, welcome to the program. What do you make of my assessment? We have an administration who's focusing on covering up, this is my belief, covering up their connections to China, Ukraine, and Russia with all the dirty business dealings. It's there for the world to see in his son's laptop. And so we're not focused on some of our biggest and best allies like your country, Israel, and helping out the Middle East. And oh, by the way, we're re-entering a nuclear deal that does nothing but embolden Syria, Iran, and the rest of the bad players and actors in the Middle East and does nothing to help you folks, again, our best ally. What the heck is this administration doing?
Well, you're spot on, but I would add to the list not only Israel, but also our ally and friend, United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, sure.
They're our allies. The UAE was attacked And to this day, they're so disappointed in the United States that no one came to show solidarity. When America was attacked in 9/11, the leadership of the UAE came to the United States to show their support.
Yep.
And then when they're attacked, nobody even went to see them except for 3 months later, some mid-level officials. So the Biden administration shouldn't be so surprised if they don't want to take their call now, when basically they offer nothing but basically some verbal support. They delisted the Houthis as a terrorist organization
Right.
in Yemen, which, had a huge psychological effect on the Middle East and among our friends and allies.
Yeah, I don't think
And the
this
same thing in
administration
Saudi
thinks
Arabia.
about, I'm sorry, Harley, I don't think this administration thinks about the visuals of the message it's sending to not only the leaders in the Emirates, in Saudi, in Israel, but to the people in general. They're probably like, what in the hell is this Biden guy doing? Siding with our enemies, meaning you guys as enemies. They're supposed to be ours and yours. You're supposed to be our friends. I don't get it.
Well, you're this is how our friends see this, and they're deeply, deeply worried. And what I tell people in the administration is that they look to America for leadership. And if we don't give them that leadership, they will look elsewhere. And I don't want to take a friend and push him in the arms of an adversary like China. So we have to be there for them. Rockets land in Saudi Arabia every day from Yemen, all orchestrated by Iran. And sooner or later, Americans are going to get hit. In the Emiratis, for example, 80 to 90% of the people there are non-Emirati. So they're Americans, they're Europeans. We have American soldiers in the Middle East and in Saudi Arabia. At some point, Americans are going to be hit. So we can't keep kicking the can down the road. We have to respond to this. And I think the big question is this: why should we care? This is how I think we have to start out when you mentioned like the Iran deal. We have to care. Why? Because Iran is building nuclear weapons that will eventually, they will target the United States. And we don't want to be in that vulnerable position. That's the problem. Right now, they're focused on Israel, as they call the little Satan. America is the big Satan. So we can't be so arrogant to think we know better what they think and do than what they say themselves. Just look at the speeches of Iranian leaders, read the Iranian newspapers, translated into English. They want to destroy America and they want to destroy Israel. So, and they want to destroy our friends in the region like the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And that's another reason why we have to care. Look how the war in Ukraine is shaping out. The biggest debate we have is, well, we don't want a nuclear war. We have to be careful in how we're dealing with Russia. So just think, if Iran gets nuclear weapons, which they're on the path to do, and if they attack our allies in the Middle East, it could be UAE, Saudi Arabia, Israel, we'll be in the same position. We'll say, well, how are we going to deal with Iran now? They have nuclear weapons. So they'll have nuclear blackmail, which is why we absolutely cannot. And lastly, what will happen is it will create a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Kuwait. Once Iran gets nuclear weapons,
everybody will want to gear up,
weapons.
and it just escalates
and in that
everything.
part of the world, somebody's going to end up using them.
Yeah, and there we go. And there's World War III. May not happen in Ukraine with Russia, might happen in the Middle East. I just don't understand these moves being made. I mean, I guess I should.
You know what they would say? I'll answer for you. When I ask people, what they say is, I say, how do you explain this deal when they're the largest sponsor of terrorism in the whole world,
Right.
Iran? We're going to end sanctions and give them close to $90 billion. No restrictions on their ability to give that money to enemies, to terrorists, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, all these bad actors, radical Islamists that hate us and want to kill us. So we can't let them, we can't let them get these weapons. And I think that what happens is, when I speak to people in the administration, they say, well, Harley, we know it's a bad deal, but a bad deal is better than no deal. And I'm just ready to pull my hair out. I say, no, you're wrong. This bad deal will be worse than no deal, because it doesn't rewind the sunset clauses, which means the time period when they could officially be able to develop nuclear weapons will happen in the next few years. So we've now made a path for them to legitimately have nuclear weapons, and nothing good can come from that.
See, this is why career politicians like a Joe Biden, and I've heard from multiple people in Congress tell me over the years, he was one of the worst on foreign policy. This is what happens with these lifer politicians. They think they know how to handle foreign policy, and that's their answer. These are these government leeches that stay in for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Well, this deal's better than no deal. No, this deal's bad for our allies. It's bad for the region. It's bad for the world. Harley Lippman, thank you so much for explaining more. And I'm glad now we also clarified why the Saudis won't return Joe's call on selling more oil to us. We screwed them. Of course they're going to turn to China now.
Right.
Harley Lippman, I have a feeling we're going to keep you on speed dial and need you more often to discuss this as things ramp up in the Middle East. God help us all. Appreciate you. Take care, sir.
Great. Thank you.